Hi, I'm Jenna, an upholsterer and designer, and today I'm going to show you how to refinish a bad paint job. Anyone that knows me knows that I love a good paint job. However, there are some projects that are not meant to be painted, especially something that is solid wood like this nightstand here. It's a great mid-century modern piece, solid in its craftsmanship, got these beautiful antique brass handles. Ooh, it's a Stanley, so it's actually a mid-century modern piece. It's got great details, solid wood, and we'll be able to strip back all of this shabby chicness and reveal its beautiful wood. To get started, we gotta remove that beautiful brass hardware. Grab yourself a Phillips head screwdriver. These beautiful brass babies off of here. Alrighty, now that the hardware's off, let's start stripping. And the product we're going to be using today is citrus strip. This product's really easy to use. We're going to brush on the citrus strip and you're going to go with the grain of the wood. Don't go against the grain, go with it. Helps the product get in there, get into all the little crooks and crannies. Now with this particular piece, because of the chalk paint, I can actually see the wood grain. However, sometimes with a painted project, you won't be able to see the wood grain, and in that case, just put a nice even coat. It usually is though, left to right, top to bottom, so it's a pretty safe bet to just go along this way. We're gonna put a nice even coat along all of the painted surfaces, and we're gonna leave it on for a half an hour and let it do its thing. As you can see, I'm not really being too gentle about getting the product on non-painted areas, and that's because it's very gentle to the wood, and it's actually conditioning it, so you won't need to worry about tape. As you're applying the citrus strip, you'll see some areas that maybe dry a little faster, and that's just because it doesn't have the same thickness of the product on, so you just want to add a little bit more. The thicker the better with this stuff. Now that I've got the main part of the nightstand completely covered in citrus strip, we're gonna set this to the side and do the drawers. Now I might have to put more than one coat of the citrus strip on these drawers because by the looks of things, this is a latex paint on the front of the drawers and not a chalk paint, which chalk paint's definitely easier to get off than a latex. But either way, I can definitely do it. You'll learn that with every furniture flip project, just like dogs. Each one's got a different personality. And when you're stripping drawers, you definitely want to make sure to not only get the front of the drawers, but also the underneath lip that you'll see when you pull out the drawers. And again, you don't have to tape anything off because this product is not going to damage the wood by any means. If anything, it's just going to moisturize it. Now that I've got all the surfaces covered with the citrus strip, we're gonna leave them for 45 minutes and let the product do its job. This is looking really good. The stripper is doing its job. See how it's breaking down the latex paint, making it crinkle up. To scrape off the stripper, we're gonna use this 15-in-1 painter's tool. We're gonna use the scraper part end right here on the stripper and go with the grain of the wood. Look at that. Look at that wood grain. Looks so good. The latex paint is coming off way easier than I thought. This is a really good sign. This is gonna be a beautiful nightstand. So satisfying. So like I suspected originally, the latex paint is gonna take multiple coats. Get off all of the paint from the wood, but we definitely are at a good starting point. I'm gonna circle back to the drawers and get the stripper off of the main part of the nightstand. Oh. I'm very pleased how this stripper is working on the chalk paint. However, I do believe it will be in our best interest to put on another coat of the citrus strip and let it do its magic one final time. Because the chalk paint's being a little stubborn coming off, we're gonna actually wrap it now with plastic, and it'll just help keep the moisture locked in and allow the stripper to do a little bit better job this time around. Now that this has a second coat, we're gonna move on to the drawers. All right, it's been an hour. Looking good. Gross, but good. Okay, let's start scraping. The second coat definitely did the trick. Now I just gotta get this surface nice and clean and free of all of the stripper. You know, now that I'm scraping off the second coat of stripper, I'm noticing that this is real wood and this is not, which sometimes happens when you're flipping furniture. You discover things that you didn't realize, you know, pre-project. Now this 15-in-1 painter's tool will only take you so far in the stripping process. So I like to keep on hand these cheap toothbrushes that you can get online for this very endeavor. Got off most of the stripper from the face of the drawer. I'm going to use baby wipes to get more of this gunk off quickly. Now we're going to do one last cleaning before we stain. And for that, we're going to use TSP. It's just a heavy duty cleaner, great for painting projects. This final cleaning step is setting you up for success. Nothing stops a wood project faster than random debris. You want the stain and the polyurethane to adhere to the wood as best as possible. Yeah, the front of these drawers are definitely two different materials. This is not going to take the stain. This sometimes happens with furniture flips. You got to pivot. But I have a creative plan to fix this. All right, let's continue stripping the rest of the nightstand. Now this is definitely wood. This is stripping very nicely. It's got a beautiful grain to it. These are gonna turn out rad. Definitely not gonna have to do any more stripper on the body of this nightstand. When you're scraping, it definitely helps to keep your scraper at a 45-degree angle, along with the grain of the wood. So gross, but worth it. Take a couple baby wipes and let's see where we're at on this. Okay, I got this piece completely cleaned up and then let it dry, and as you can see, the wood grain is beyond beautiful. Now we're gonna give it one last final cleaning with some TSP, just like we did with the face of the drawer. See what I mean? Still coming off. We're gonna slowly clean each one of the feet of the nightstand. We got the entire body of the nightstand wiped down with the heavy duty cleaner, the TSP, and now we're going to tackle what to do with the two different types of surfaces on the face of the doors. All right, this is looking dry and great, nice and clean, ready to go. Now that we've discovered that these are two different surfaces, we're gonna paint this part instead and then stain the two squares along with the body of the nightstand. I've taped off the area where we don't want the spray paint to land, and for an extra good measure, we're gonna use a clear coat acrylic spray paint to spray around the seam of the tape. This will make sure that the spray paint itself does not leak underneath onto the area where we want to put the stain. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit around the seams. Now, while the clear coat dries, I'm gonna wrap the rest of the body of the drawer. We've got all of the surfaces covered where we don't want the spray paint to land. Let's add some color. This is looking great. While this one dries, I'm gonna go grab the other drawer. Getting down to the last step, we are going to add a stain polyurethane mix. Pretty much one and done. This is a really great product if you're on a tight deadline, or if you're just wanting to possibly skip a step on your DIY. A lot of times when you're doing refinishing wood projects, you do a stain, allow it to dry, and then a polyurethane. But with this product, it's a 2-in-1, so it's definitely gonna cut down on the DIY time. You just wanna dip in about 1 inch of the brush into the product. We're gonna go with the grain of the wood. And as you apply the product, you wanna do it at a 45-degree angle with the brush, making sure to keep a wet look edge, which means that you never want it to be drying as you're going. The reason I'm doing these wide brush strokes is, again, I'm trying to keep the product moving and soaking into the grain and not allowing it to dry in a puddle in one section. So if you see a part drying, you want to keep it moving, because the worst thing you can do is let stain set in a particular part of the wood. That's how you get unevenness in the coloration of the stain. With the stain, it's pretty much you just want to keep the product moving. And that's why you also want to go with the wood grain, because we're trying to get the stain deep down into those wood grains so that it brings out the different hues of the wood grain. You see how nice and even that looks? So we got the top nice and go, and like, look, you can't even see the brush marks. If you do get a little stain that's dry on you, just add a little more product and work it. Kind of re-wet itself. The wood grain goes down, so we're gonna go down with the wood grain. I'm looking around for any drip marks, places where stain is gooped up, piled up a little extra, where I don't need it. Up to this point, we've basically been ignoring these legs because they're not really anything special. However, because they are visible, I am gonna add a little bit of the stained polyurethane to each so that they, overall are cohesive with the entire project and also don't, stick out on their own, because they are not the main event. This is looking really good. Now we're gonna go back to the drawers. Spray paint on the drawer face is dry, so we're gonna remove the tape and start staining. Gotta love a nice straight paint line. Look at that. Perfect. And now we're going to apply some of the stained polyurethane. We're not going to use the big brush for this portion since we have very little real estate to cover. So I'm going to opt for a sponge brush instead, and we're going to do our best not to get the stain on the paint so we don't have to go back and do any touch-ups. I'm seeing some parts that's got extra stain on it that I don't want. You don't want it to dry, so I'm just gonna blot it. Get all the extra off. Got a Q-tip, use it to touch up some of the areas I got stain on. So I'm actually using my 2 fingers, pushing some pressure on the sponge brush to help give it a little pressure. You don't have as much manipulation with a foam brush. Sometimes you gotta MacGyver that. And once I get all of the product manipulated like I want it to be, I'll spread out even. I'm gonna touch up my edges again with the Q-tips. So if you get some of the product dried and uneven in one spot, you can always dampen a cloth or a paper towel really quick and just even it out. So here's a nice visual for you. No stain in polyurethane, stain in polyurethane. This is looking great. I'm gonna go grab the second drawer. Second drawer, let's do this. I do this stuff every day and I'm still making mistakes. So if you're feeling stressed out while you're doing your furniture project, just remember to halt, take a deep breath, and regroup. Okay, this is looking really good. We're gonna allow it to dry, put on the hardware, and then style this nightstand. If you like this project and want to see more, give it a thumbs up and follow HGTV.